Hey, what's up, guys? This is Neil. So when in our Surfactant Business Essentials course, we ask the question, where do surfactants come from? What we really mean is, where do hydrophobes and hydrophiles come from? The short answer, as you'll see on this chart, is from the oil field, the gas field, and from the palm plantation. Represented here, these feedstocks are the vast majority by tons of the key feedstocks that go into the manufacture of surfactants. But that's not the whole story, because most of what you see here, most of the key building blocks that go into the surfactant value chain are in fact made as part of a much broader portfolio of other products used for much different applications. In fact, the surfactant value chain is really a classic co-product and byproduct story. So this next chart looks specifically at the key petrochemical routes. Highlighted in green are the hydrophobes, highlighted in blue are the key hydrophiles. And as you can already see, there's a lot of co-product chemistry here. SO3 goes into sulfates, and sulfonates is really a co-product of the distillation process. And as you go further down the crude oil value chain, you'll see jet kerosene, which is jet fuel, gives rise to normal paraffins. Benzene, of course, along with the normal paraffins, goes into linear alkyl benzene. Benzene's used primarily in the production of ethyl benzene, going into styrene, cyclohexane, ultimately going into polyamides. And so there's a whole much larger value chain outside of surfactants for both of those building blocks. It's the same story with ethane going into ethylene. Of course, ethylene is made primarily to feed polyethylene, other types of polymers, a small amount of ethylene going into the surfactant area for detergent range alcohols, as well as ethylene oxide. And of course, ethylene oxide itself is another co-product story. The vast majority, 80+% of EO molecules going into areas other than surfactants, particularly MEG for PET used in apparel and packaging. So again, even in that very important end for EO, for ethoxylates, it's a sort of a co-product of a co-product story. If you look again at this chart, staying with petrochemicals, looking in a little more detail at what comes out of a barrel of crude oil. I'll take a look at the same picture you're looking at here. You'll see about half of that's going into gasoline, another quarter into diesel fuel, other types of fuel for heating, and it's just that 10% that's going into jet fuel that is really of interest to us as users of normal paraffins, ultimately ending up in linear alkyl benzene. And so again, it's that classic co-product story. Same story again on the oleochemical side. And here we'll look at some key oleochemical routes on this chart. And you'll see that obviously we all know the palm plantation is very important. The palm fruit will give you palm oil from the fruit itself on the outside, right? And palm kernel oil from the kernel. Palm kernel oil is about 10% by weight of the stuff that you get, of the oil that you get from that crushing process. And so it's very much the co-product. Palm kernel oil is very much the co-product of palm oil, which is used, of course, in food applications. And then digging in a little bit into what we do in the surfactant industry with palm kernel oil. We're cracking it to get glycerin, and then we're separating out those carbon chain lengths, the 8s, 10s, 12, 14, 16, 18. So arguably, you're not building a detergent range alcohol plant for the 8s and 10s. You're really interested in the 12s and 14s. And so arguably, there's only half roughly of what's coming out there that's of interest, and the rest are just co-products, are just byproducts. So again, very, very similar story. So what does this mean? Is it good? Is it bad? I think it's it's widely recognized that co-product economics are a means to squeeze the most out of an activity. And certainly the story of the petrochemical industry, huge success story in finding a home for every single chain length, every single fraction of that barrel of oil, right, that we were just looking at. If you look at some of the new technologies, fermentation, for example, it's not so well documented what the co-product story is there, although there are certainly co-products and byproducts of fermentation. Not a lot talked about current co-product activities from this new wave of fermentation companies, but certainly something of interest. So, stepping back, way back, ICIS, my partners in the conferences and so forth, put together a pretty interesting petrochemical flow chart, which will really give you a good idea of the co-product nature of what we're looking at in our industry versus some other very important industries coming out of petrochemical derivatives. So we'll take a little bit of a look at it here in the video, but I encourage you to go and download. It's free. They capture your email, but you can opt out if you want of emails. And it's a pretty nice chart. I used to have it on my wall behind me here, if some of you may remember. So definitely encourage you to do that. And again, if you found this very short video interesting, like, subscribe, and please do let me know in the comments what all you would like to cover in future editions of these 5-minute videos. Thank you very much again for listening.